Columbus, Mississippi was a retirement haven until 5 senior citizens were brutally murdered in their homes.
Why would you do something like that to an 80-year-old woman?
The killer has never been caught.
While these murders were occurring, residents began to arm themselves, while police relied on the public for help.
I'm lifting the lid on this shocking cold case, sifting through the false leads and urban myth to get to the truth. I'm M. William Phelps, best-selling crime author, and I have an obsession: serial killer, cold cases.
Now, nearly 10 years later, investigators say they still need the public's help.
For me, it's personal. My sister-in-law was murdered, and her killer has never been caught. These killers are still out there. Their victims deserve justice, and just one new clue could make all the difference. I don't have a badge, but I do have something the cops don't have. Someone who understands the dark mind of a murderer.
Boy, I'm telling you, nobody can hear her scream.
Because he is one. In the 1990s, the sleepy town of Columbus, Mississippi was rocked by the murder of 5 elderly citizens over 2 years.
We got a white female, approximately 80 years old.
Mac Fowler, George Wilbanks, Robert Hanna, Betty Everett, and Louise Randall. 2 were stabbed, 1 bludgeoned, and 2 others hog-tied and strangled. Ages 61 to 80. Their golden years cut tragically short. The fear spread like wildfire. Sweet Southern grandmothers started carrying guns, and strangers received cold looks instead of cordial waves. No one in the town of 30,000 people could understand what kind of killer would prey on seniors and why.
At that time, rumors swirled around town about a serial killer stalking residents, but still no killer has been arrested.
My investigation starts with a visit to my 2 expert consultants on cold cases, veteran criminal profiler John Kelly and a very unusual colleague he's been developing for 10 years, an incarcerated serial killer who gives him his take on other killers. Kelly calls him 13. 13 knows the mind of a murderer inside out, and these cases stir old memories for Kelly.
You know, to be honest with you, this case kind of tugs at my heart.
Kelly traveled south in 1999 to profile this killer, until a shakeup in the local police department changed the state of play, and Kelly came home. But he hasn't forgotten Columbus, and he never will, until the killer's caught.
I'm very interested in seeing what you come up with, because this is unfinished business for me.
Here you have 5 murders of elderly people spread out over Columbus, Mississippi, brutalized inside their homes basically in the middle of the day.
You brought up a good point. Being killed in their homes, not being murdered in hospitals or nursing homes by so-called angels of death.
Kelly's brought up a special breed of serial killer. Health workers who murder the helpless people they care for. Angels of death. Men like former nurse Charles Cullen, who administered lethal doses of medicine to at least 40 patients over 16 years. Or Donald Harvey, an orderly who used poison, smothering, and faulty oxygen tanks to kill 52 people during a 17-year spree. Both claim they were acting out of mercy. But was their real desire to play God? The killer down in Columbus is killing seniors in their homes. He's no angel of death. So what drove him to murder? Time to ask another murderer, who's no angel either. 13.
What do you think the motive was for these murders?
Money.
Money?
Money. Yeah.
Robbery, yeah.
These people were tied up and gagged.
That's correct.
Okay, he probably did that to search the house for money.
Okay.
Or something he could sell.
Right.
I wouldn't be a bit surprised if these people were murdered shortly after the beginning of the month when they got their welfare checks. In the group that I hung out with, they called the ladies called that their Mother's Day gift. You know, the girls are on welfare; they get their Mother's Day present on the first of the month.
Was the kill the main aim here?
No, the killing again. He just did not want witnesses. No witnesses. That's it.
These guys are about stealing and killing for their own creature comforts, and that's where comfort killer comes from.
Kelly and 13 think the Columbus murderer is a comfort killer who steals from his victims, then kills them so they can't be witnesses. But I'm not so sure. From what I know so far, only 2 of the victims had anything stolen, and we're talking tiny amounts of cash. Which means if this guy is a comfort killer, he's not a very good one. And if he didn't want witnesses, why not just wear a mask? Something isn't adding up, so I'm heading south to get more information.
In July 1996, Columbus police began investigating the death of Mac Fowler. Then 15 months later, another death. Like Fowler, George Wilbanks was found murdered in his home.
The first 2 victims, 71-year-old Mac Fowler and 70-year-old George Wilbanks, were both stabbed. The third, Robert Hanna, was beaten to death, while the 2 females, Louise Randall and Betty Everett, were strangled. For me, that raises more questions. Like, would a serial killer really switch up his method of murder?
This is it. When I think of the South, this is the picture I have in my head. Mom and pops, cafe on Main, steeples, small town life. Main Street, USA. It's where people what? People go to sleep with their doors unlocked. But then what happens to this sleepy community? What happens is 1 murder, then 2 murders, then 3 murders. And people start to go crazy. People start to wonder, is there a serial killer here preying on these people? Preying on the elderly. And what could be worse? What could be worse?
One thing's for sure, these crimes terrified old folks back in the 90s. Should they still be fearful? To find out, I'm going straight to the top. Columbus Chief of Police, Joseph St. John.
So murder itself is pretty rare in this town, then?
Yes, and it's going to be taken personally. I think when you get into a small town environment like what we have, whereas in some bigger towns where, as much as this sounds awful, where murder becomes part of the everyday life or becomes regular, not in a small town like Columbus. When something like that happens, it leaves an impact and people remember it. When you talk about these murders, they're part of the consciousness of this culture, of this community.
St. John wasn't in Columbus at the time of the murders, but as chief, this cold case weighs on his shoulders.
So the 5 murders we're talking about, they have not been solved?
Unfortunately, they have not been solved, but I don't want to give the impression that they have not been investigated. You know, don't ever forget that each one are individuals. And don't forget that each one of those people have a face. And don't forget that each one of those people deserve the right to have their case looked at individually.
Where should I go from this point?
I think probably the best person to go talk to get a very good understanding of what was occurring during that time is Lieutenant Sylvain McQueen.
It's clear the specter of this killer still haunts the people of Columbus. But what did Chief St. John mean when he said each case should be looked at individually? Are we looking at more than one killer here? To dig deeper, I'm following the chief's orders and meeting Lieutenant Sylvain McQueen. He was one of the original detectives who worked the murders, and he remembers the terror that swept the elderly community.
You have old ladies, old men that are going to pawn shops. They're buying weapons, just emptying the shelves, if you will.
Wow.
They're coming to the police department. They're learning how to shoot. People are installing security systems within their homes. It's total pandemonium, if you will. It's chaotic. We're working a lot of overtime trying to solve these cases.
So, Sylvain, you were part of the investigation from the beginning. Talk me through what happened.
Well, when it began, it was just another, if you will, not to underplay anything, it was another murder. We go out, we process the crime scene, we do investigative leads, but then another murder occurred before we could solve the first murder. And then another murder occurred. The town is literally turned upside down. The everyday functions, the things that we know as the norm, life as usual, it's not happening anymore.
How come?
The term serial murderer.
That did it all.
That did it. It turned the town upside down.
But McQueen is still working these murders, and he's optimistic.
Investigative work is, there's two trains of thoughts here, if you will. There's what is called old school, and there's new wave, if you will. And what I believe in is just pounding the pavement until you get it done.
The problem is, it didn't get done. Once the panic got out about a serial killer roaming the streets, the police department was thrown into turmoil, with all its energy diverted into reassuring the public.
The focus was taken off of the investigations themselves as a result of the media frenzy.
So we have an investigation that's starting, stopping, problems in the department. How do we find the person of interest?
Many people of interest have been developed by the powers to be that were within the Criminal Investigations Division during that time. At one time, we even had a task force that had been formed that were doing nothing but working on the murders. And so we've gotten to a point now that we're going to solve, if not all, we're going to solve some of those murders, that I can assure you of.
So as I mingle about the community here in Columbus, is it possible I could walk past the murderer on the streets while I'm here?
Yes, sir, you could.
It's an unsettling thought. I may already have brushed with a killer. But Chief St. John's advice is still nagging at me. Look at these murders individually. And why is McQueen talking about solving some of the murders? Enough with the hints and clues. I need straight answers. Is this really a serial killer case? Luckily, Kelly has hooked me up with a secret source.
So let's talk about the misconceptions and then the truth.
Investigators from across the Golden Triangle pitched in to try and help Columbus police solve these gruesome crimes.
It's a Southern Gothic mystery with a touch of urban myth. Who murdered 5 senior citizens in Columbus, Mississippi during the late 1990s? The locals say it was a serial killer, but he's never been caught. I'm trying to dig out fresh leads, and so far, it all points me to one big question. Are we really looking at just one killer?
I know it would give everybody lots and lots of comfort if they could put like one diabolical person handcuffed behind their back, doing the perp walk, you know? I know that would make everybody feel good, but is it the truth? That's what we need to find out.
I'm heading back to talk to my profiling contact, John Kelly. Back in 1999, he was called in to Columbus to profile the killer, or killers. But he'd hardly begun before an embezzlement scandal shook the local police department to its core.
This investigation, you might say, completely blew up. You know, I don't know if you know that the chief then was arrested for taking money out of the Crime Stoppers tip fund and giving it to his girlfriend. Yeah, the FBI arrested him.
Nice.
Okay? So the whole investigation blew up. The new chief comes in. Get this. He takes all the detectives and he puts them out on the street, back into patrol. He then takes all the patrol cops and guess what? Magically turns them into detectives. So now it seems like this case, you know, fell through the cracks.
This small-town murder mystery just got a little more mysterious. But luckily, Kelly has an inside source he wants me to meet. Someone connected with the original investigation. He'll speak to me only if he can remain anonymous, because he's going to say what others won't. He tells me the first two murders of Mac Fowler and George Wilbanks are not connected to the others. Police had solid suspects in both, and each knew their victim.
George Wilbanks, he was a retired interior decorator. We had a suspect in that case that we felt real strong about. We talked to him at length, and at one point, we almost had him to break, and then he would just pull back. He never would admit to anything, but some of the things he was saying to us led us to believe that he was the person that committed the crime.
Without a confession or good physical evidence, the suspect in George Wilbanks' case was not charged. It was the same with Mac Fowler. Detectives had a person of interest, but not enough proof to confirm their suspicions or make an arrest. For my anonymous source, the frustration still burns.
I think a lot of misconception, a lot of people feel like the police department's not doing the job or can't solve anything, and it's just not true. It's real hard to solve these types of crimes, especially when people don't leave a lot of evidence. A lot of people have a conception that it just because you touch something, you're going to leave a fingerprint, and that's not always true.
This is a big twist. Only 3 of the murders may be connected after all. This case isn't so clear-cut as people think.
You know, when something is not working, you have to go down a different road. You have to look at it differently. You have to think about it differently. Can't put blinders on, especially when you're dealing with a case that is tugging at you to go the other way.
I gotta tell Kelly about this.
Mac Fowler, I'm gonna cross him off this pool of serial killer victims because it was just a random killing that happened for no good reason.
You see, that's a major fact.
The other thing is this. George Wilbanks, cross him out, baby.
But I'm still not sure what could motivate someone to murder the remaining 3 seniors. Is this killer psychotic, or is it something else? I want Kelly to see if 13 has any more ideas.
I've seen good people that turn to drugs, and they would do things that they never thought they would do.
When 5 elderly residents of Columbus, Mississippi were brutally murdered in their homes between 1996 and 1998, rumors of a serial killer sent the town into all-out panic. And 15 years later, locals are still haunted by the memory.
People there, they have not forgot about these cases. I mean, you kill 5 elderly people in a community like that, and the people do not let that go.
A lot of people still believe the urban myth that one killer was responsible for all 5 murders. But I've learned from a confidential source that the first 2 victims are not connected. That brings the victim count down to 3, all murdered in 5 weeks during October and November 1998. Robert Hanna, Louise Randall, and Betty Everett. So what do we know about the killer that connects them? Maybe Kelly's insider, the killer he calls 13, can shed some light on this.
Hi, John.
Tell me what kind of guy murders these elderly people.
Somebody that works in an old folks' home, maybe.
Right.
Or delivers food to these elderly.
Okay. Do you think he was a drug addict?
Good possibility. Good possibility. I've seen good people that turn to drugs, and their entire attitude changed. You know, they would do things that they never thought they would do. That's it.
13 has given me 2 solid new leads to chase. Drugs could play a big role in this killer's brutal crimes. And he may have some kind of job that gives him access to seniors. Kelly recalls a healthcare connection between the 2 female victims.
We're looking at Louise Randall. She has healthcare workers coming to her house.
A lot of elderly do. I mean, that's not so rare.
Yeah, and they were from. And then we have Betty Everett, who worked and cut hair at.
Kelly's theory is that a killer working at a local aged care facility may have known the 2 female victims personally, or at least have known that they lived alone and where. But what about Robert Hanna? He wasn't involved with any care facility. I need to find out if he's connected to the women in some other way. And the best place to do that is on the ground. I need to get back to Columbus and investigate further.
Louise Randall. Here we are, Louise Randall.
Louise Randall, 80, was found dead in her home on October 21st, 1998. There was no sign of forced entry.
She was what? Bound, gagged, strangled, was not sexually assaulted. Her house was ransacked, but nothing was taken. Now, the ghetto was right down the block. I witnessed drug dealing going on myself today. You know, you involve drugs and the evil that the deal in drugs brings into the situation, anything's possible. You know, maybe someone from the hood decided, you know what? I'm gonna try every door on this block to see which one is unlocked. And the one that's unlocked, I'm going in. So what? They get to Randall's house, they find it unlocked, they go in, and they try to shake her down for whatever money, jewels, whatever she has. And she just pleads the fifth. I don't have anything. I don't have anything. And they kill her. So was she killed by a drug addict? Was she killed by a serial killer? Who in the hell killed this woman?
I'm headed across town to where the other female victim, 67-year-old Betty Everett, lived and died.
On November 17th, Everett's body was found in her North Columbus home after she failed to show up for work. Neighbors last saw her taking out her garbage.
Betty was found 4 weeks after Louise. Again, there was no sign of forced entry. The house was ransacked, but nothing was taken. And she was bound, gagged, beaten, and then strangled to death. Did Betty refuse to give up her valuables? Or did she simply not have any? Now I'm heading into one of Columbus's poorer neighborhoods, where victim number 3, Robert Hanna, lived.
Approximately a 60, 65-year-old black male, seemed to be head trauma.
On October 13th, Robert Hanna's house was set on fire. When firemen arrived, they found his body.
On the street, I meet Mr. Hanna's former neighbor, Ricky Watson. Tell me about Mr. Hanna. What kind of guy was he?
He was a good old guy. He didn't bother nobody. He speak to people. He didn't have a wife. And if you ask for anything, he'll give it to you. I don't know why he ended up killed.
What were people scared of most around here after Mr. Hanna was found bludgeoned to death?
Well, most of them were scared to come outside. People were watching their back, and a lot of old people were really scared. They were thinking that maybe there's somebody from out of town or some serial killer done come in town, but they haven't found him yet. That's the main thing about it. All I can say is, hope the Lord they find him, find whoever did it, but I hate it. And I'm just happy my mama wasn't around at that time, and whoever they weren't looking for my mom. I'm just happy, but I'm sad that whoever it was that killed them people.
Robert Hanna, aged 61, was found dead in his kitchen. The interior of his home ravaged by fire. His wallet was found in the sink, emptied of what little cash he had. Now that I've scouted the neighborhoods, one thing's clear. No forced entry means the killer either knew his victims or was at least someone who wouldn't raise suspicions if he was seen in the area. But there are still so many questions about what happened inside the houses. Why was nothing stolen from the female victims? And why was Robert Hanna's house set on fire? Does one of the crime scenes have a secret to tell?
From analyzing the crime scenes, you're able to see some glaring dissimilarities between these cases.
I'm in Columbus, Mississippi, working a triple murder cold case with 3 bizarre twists. 1, the victims were all senior citizens. 2, it seems robbery was the motive, but only one of the 3 victims had anything taken. 3, the killer could still be walking the streets. Can forensics help put him away? I'm meeting with Austin Shepard, Director of Forensics at the recently established Columbus Crime Lab. Armed with state-of-the-art technology and a specialist knowledge, Shepard has a radical new take on the evidence. So we have a new crime lab here, which gives you the opportunity to recheck these cold cases. How did you do that?
I looked at the analytical techniques that were available back in the mid-'90s and late '90s, as opposed to what we have available now. And you know, what we're doing at present is going through these cases and reanalyzing them, basically. With the reanalysis, we're opening up a lot of new doors that we've been able to develop several very promising leads through this.
Shepard lays it out for me. Forensics confirm that the murders in 1996 and 97 of Mac Fowler and George Wilbanks are not connected to the 3 deaths in 1998. And although he can't comment on the details of active leads, he drops a bombshell. At least one of the remaining 3 cases may not be connected either.
From analyzing the crime scenes, looking at MO and motive, you're able to see some glaring dissimilarities between these cases.
Can you just, if you will, talk me through as much as you can the differences in each of the crime scenes?
The evidence tended to show that in some cases the offender may have been a little more organized, whereas other crime scenes presented more of a disorganized feel, which is one of the things that leads us to believe that these cases, are not actually connected as much as people think.
According to Shepard, some of the crime scenes may have been staged, manipulated by the killer to try and trick investigators into reading the evidence incorrectly.
When you start really looking at the scene itself, you begin to see aspects of staging, which would lead me to tend to believe that it's actually more of an organized killing, whereas others were much more disorganized. So,
Kind of a hit and run type of thing.
Sort of an opportunistic killer, basically.
Forensics have really moved the case forward with new information. And although Shepard can't tell me which murder is the odd one out, the facts seem pretty clear to me. Both female victims were strangled. Robert Hanna was beaten and stabbed. The women's houses were ransacked, but nothing was stolen. Hannah's wallet was robbed. Louise Randall and Betty Everett were hog-tied and gagged. Robert Hanna was not. I think Hannah's out of this. So now we're down from 5 victims to 2. The bad news is we're up from 1 killer to 4. But something's bothering me. If police long suspected the deaths may not be the work of a serial killer, how did the urban myth get started in the first place?
Now, does the coroner generally give interviews like that at the scene?
It's not uncommon.
To find out, I've arranged an interview with a local WCBI news reporter, Joey Barnes. Over the years, Joey's tracked community feeling about these murders and received inside information from law enforcement.
There was numerous theories and, in a small town, rumors are going to run rampant. And once the serial killer rumor got out, it never went away.
So let's talk about this investigation now, early on. How did it proceed?
At the beginning, I really don't think the community was very happy with how things were progressing, because when you have this number of people that are grouped together and killed over a short period of time, especially for our area, they want answers, and they want them quick.
At that time, rumors swirled around town about a serial killer.
Unlike most people, Barnes was aware investigators had multiple suspects early on, and that they knew not all the murders were connected. But unfortunately, police appeals for information gave the public the opposite impression.
Crime Stoppers with the police print these posters. What happens?
I believe it incited this community. It promoted that serial killer mentality and thought that there was only one killer.
So let's fast forward some years.
There's still a lot of questions that have gone completely unanswered. And because of some circumstances, there may never be an answer to some of these murders simply because of witnesses moving away, witnesses dying, suspects dying, or possible evidence that was damaged during the crime scene collection.
Still, Barnes has faith all the cases will be solved, and he has a tip for me.
The two that are connected, it would seem to me, it's someone local. Someone here knew these ladies' routines, knew what they did, and knew how they could take advantage of that.
The similarities in the murders of Louise Randall and Betty Everett are overwhelming. But if the killer did know so much about his victims, why didn't he make sure they had something worth stealing? I've got an idea I need to run by Kelly.
What if robbery is just a ruse? And this guy is just about the kill? So if robbery is just the ruse, if robbery is the staging, then this guy is just about the kill.
A thrill killer. Someone who gets off on seeing his victims helpless and terrified. Now that's a different kind of beast altogether.
Would you give that a steak to Mike if he wants it? Next door? Yeah, okay.
Like the infamous Charles Manson, who dressed up his savage murders in a bogus cult philosophy. But Kelly's not buying it.
It's hard for me to believe that somebody would stage a situation where murder has taken place and made it look like a robbery and spent all that extra time not knowing when somebody was coming in on these women to see how they were doing.
So then, if it's not staging, then the motive is different.
Well, if it's not staging, I'm believing the motive is the same with both women. Money. Whoever killed these women, I truly believe, was about the cash.
Kelly wants to call in another opinion on the robbery motive question. Former King County Chief of Detectives Frank Adamson is a crime scene expert. So what's his take on it?
Was the motive robbery? Do you really believe robbery was the motive, Frank?
I think this person did come in to rob these people. Why did he kill them? I think that he killed them because they could identify him, and he didn't want to be identified.
Frank, I'm looking at this totally different. And I'm looking at the idea that he's using the robbery thing as a stage, right? To throw everybody off because he likes to kill. Some people are just evil, you know? And there's no rhyme or reason to it. They just wanna kill. They just wanna spread violence throughout the world and watch the world burn, right?
He's evil. We have
No dispute about that.
No dispute about that. Where the dispute lies is, I see this person as not making the mistake of giving the police more evidence. He went in there to rob, and he wanted to get rid of these victims so that they couldn't put him back in jail where he belonged.
I know Adamson has more experience in this area than I do, but Columbus forensic investigator Austin Shepard has seen the actual crime scenes, and he believes staging is a factor. I think we need a killer's take on this. Kelly is stuck on robbery as the motive. He still thinks the killer was looking for money, but couldn't find any. But the facts of the case have changed. We're now talking about a killer with just 2 female victims, nothing taken from either. Will that change 13's take on it?
I'm ready.
There was no sign of any break-in. So what does that tell you?
So she knew her killer.
Was this guy getting a sexual high by tying them up?
No, that's just he's in there while he searches for the money.
Okay, got you.
13's still stuck on robbery too.
Do you think he may have tied them up and kind of tried to scare them into telling him where they may have had a good bundle of their money hid?
Oh, yeah.
A lot of older people hide their money.
That's it.
You know, Matthew, I have to tell you, I agree with 13 on this. I just don't think that this guy was a thrill killer or a rage killer and that he was killing out of rage.
Sometimes 13 and what he says makes sense to me, and his insight helps us. But in this case, he's absolutely wrong. I think the robbery aspect of this is a smokescreen. If we're gonna connect these 2 cases, I think it was about power, it was about control, it was about getting off on these 2 victims and controlling them.
I know 13's got experience I don't have, but I'm the one on the ground. I'm talking to the cops. I'm examining forensics. He's just sitting in his cell. This time, I'm trusting my own instincts. And right now, my gut's telling me to talk to the only person of interest ever named publicly in this case, the son of one of the victims. He maintains his innocence and says he knows who really did it.
I just know there's no reason for those keys to be there. No reason whatsoever.
In the quiet, church-going town of Columbus, Mississippi, the murders of 5 elderly citizens remain unsolved. And I've discovered there could be as many as 4 different killers. After years of investigation, only one suspect in any of the murders has ever been publicly identified.
I was just kind of blown away at the fact that they even suggested I do such a thing.
Grady Randall is the son of one of the victims, Louise Randall. In 1999, he was questioned in relation to his mother's murder. But why did detectives suspect him in the first place?
They said the only person that would know what you know is the person had to have been there. That person had to have been there at the time. And I said, well, I can assure you, all I know is what I've been told. And I said, you know, when I went to the evidence room, and as soon as I said that, they looked at each other dumbfounded and said, you what?
Who took you in the evidence room?
I'd just rather not mention names.
No one except investigators should have access to the evidence room, which means the reason Grady knew too much about the crime and therefore became a suspect may have been due to an error in police procedure. Grady was released, and then he gave police a real person of interest. In the days after his mother's murder, he found a set of keys inside her house that belonged to a local man.
Those keys should have gone to the police immediately. And being in the situation I was in, I guess it just didn't dawn on me what I should have done at that moment. And so, you know, I returned the keys to the owner.
And the owner was whom?
Well, I'd rather not say, due to the fact that, you know, the police department, it could interfere with their investigation.
All right, let's call the owner of the keys John Doe. Why are these keys significant?
There's no reason for those keys to be there. No reason whatsoever for them to be there.
How did he act after your mother was murdered?
Very talkative and very friendly, whereas prior to that, he wouldn't say hello or how you doing if we looked each other in the face.
Did he ask you for those keys?
Yes.
He came to you, Grady, and asked you for the keys?
Numerous times.
Was he worried about those keys?
Yeah.
Why would your mother have his keys, Grady?
She wouldn't.
So inside, did it look like someone had robbed the place?
It was, in my opinion, staged to look that way, yes. Mama wasn't the type somebody would break into to rob.
He's no expert, but Grady supports the staging theory, too.
Grady, do you think John Doe murdered your mother?
I've had my suspicions.
If the man who killed your mother was standing right here, what would you say to him?
You know, just why would you do something like that to an 80-year-old woman? I would just like to know why.
If robbery was just a ruse, was it a thrill kill after all? Where did police get with the John Doe lead? Columbus authorities won't comment, but I'm meeting a retired member of the force who has a new lead for me. Gary Moore was the lead detective on the murder of Betty Everett.
Hey, Gary, thanks for meeting me.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. So Betty Everett's house, right there?
That's right.
This was your case. Tell me about it.
She had gone out that morning to put the trash can out by the road before she left for work. When she walked out to the road, that's when we speculated that someone had slipped around the corner of her house and entered the carport door and was waiting on her when she came back in.
Moore developed a strong person of interest in his case. Could this be the final blow to the idea that any of the murders are connected?
I had developed a suspect in Miss Everett's case. He lived just around the corner with his elderly mother. I went and talked to the guy, knocked on his door. He came to the door, told him who I was and that I wanted to talk to him. And the next day I get a call from an attorney telling me that he's not going to talk to me, not going to do anything, you know.
What's more, the suspect was once arrested for physically abusing his elderly mother. He fit the profile. But before Detective Moore could investigate further, the suspect skipped town.
So by your gut instinct, Gary, is he responsible for this murder here?
It's very possible he could be. I was wanting to explore that possibility a little bit more and didn't get the opportunity to. It bothered me that we never did get anywhere to the point of making an arrest on it. I'd lay awake at night back when I was working on the case and just thinking, you know, what do I do next? I need to do this, I need to do that, and, you know, spent a lot of nights without a lot of sleep. But I've always been told, now I don't know, I've always been told that the perfect crime is someone that does it by themselves and keeps their mouth shut. And that there may be a little truth to that. I think eventually, maybe down the road, they'll get caught. If not, you know, God will take care of them.
Moore can't say anything about the current status of the investigation. But my own conclusions are clear. The Columbus serial killer is an urban legend. The reality is, we could be looking at 5 killers, one for every victim. Fear and rumors created a monster in this town.
I can see why the community here was in a frenzy. I can understand why. And I can also understand why they would want to face on that evil.
Columbus authorities continue to strive to identify the perpetrators of these crimes. With the help of science and the public, the families can still get closure.